All right, so get this, listeners. Today, we're going deep on resveratrol.
Resveratrol.
Yeah, you know the stuff you always hear about in red wine.
Oh, right, right.
But what if I told you this compound, this resveratrol, could be a key player in treating some serious stuff like, get this, COVID.
COVID.
Yeah, and even Parkinson's disease. We've got 2 research papers to unpack. They're really fascinating.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right in.
Wow. It's pretty mind-blowing, to think that one natural compound could potentially tackle 2 totally different diseases like that.
Right.
It really kind of shows how understanding the nuts and bolts, the mechanisms of a disease, can lead to some pretty unexpected discoveries.
Absolutely. It shows how these conditions, they seem completely different, but they might actually share some common pathways. Okay, so first up, let's talk about COVID-19 and this lung disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or IPF.
IPF?
Yeah. Both of these can really mess up your lungs. And the researchers, get this, they found that resveratrol can actually target 5 key processes involved in that damage.
5 key processes.
5.
Okay, so these processes, things like inflammation, how cells move around, and even the formation of new blood vessels, they all get disrupted in both COVID-19 and IPF. The researchers in this paper, they basically built this virtual model of the body.
The virtual model.
Yeah, like a simulation, to map out exactly how resveratrol interacts with these processes.
So they're not just like guessing, they're actually seeing it happen at like a molecular level.
Exactly. They're using computer models and simulations to really get a detailed look at how resveratrol is interacting with the body.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
And what did they find? Like, what's the takeaway?
Well, they found that resveratrol can potentially reduce infection
Okay.
and fibrosis, which is that scarring you see in the lungs.
Oh, well.
This opens up some really exciting possibilities for using resveratrol as a potential treatment for both COVID-19 and IPF.
So wait, just because resveratrol binds to these targets, like, does that automatically mean that it'll be a good treatment?
That's a really good question. It's important to remember this is early stage research. We need more studies, more data to confirm these findings. But one detail I found really interesting was that resveratrol really latches onto those key targets, like very strongly, indicating that it could be a very effective treatment.
Interesting. So we've seen how resveratrol might work in the lungs. Now get ready for this. The second paper we're looking at explores its potential for treating Parkinson's disease.
Parkinson's.
And they're using some seriously cutting-edge science to do it, from what I understand.
Yeah, this is where things get really, really interesting. The researchers developed these tiny nanoparticles. Think of them like microscopic delivery trucks.
Microscopic delivery truck.
No, it's wild. They carry resveratrol and this antibiotic called ceftriaxone directly to the brain.
Hold on. I thought getting anything past the blood-brain barrier was, like, incredibly difficult.
Right.
Isn't that a major challenge in treating neurological diseases?
You're absolutely right. The blood-brain barrier is notoriously tough to cross, which is why delivering drugs to the brain is such a challenge. But these researchers, they came up with a really ingenious solution. They grafted these nanoparticles, those little trucks, with special proteins that can basically sneak past the blood-brain barrier.
So they're like hijacking the brain's own delivery system.
You got it. That's some seriously clever science.
That's really wild. But did it work? Like, did those tiny trucks deliver?
Well, in lab-grown cells, treatment with these resveratrol nanoparticles actually improved cell viability and reduced the expression of proteins that are associated with Parkinson's disease.
So they're seeing some positive results at, like, a cellular level.
Exactly.
That's incredibly promising.
It is. Yeah, it really is. While these are, early findings just from lab studies, it highlights the potential of this whole new delivery system, for targeted therapy in Parkinson's.
Okay, so we've got resveratrol potentially fighting a virus and also showing promise against a neurodegenerative disease. What's the common thread? What makes resveratrol so versatile?
Well, if we kind of connect these findings to the bigger picture, both of these papers point to resveratrol's anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Those seem to be the key mechanisms for its benefits.
Ah, yes, the dynamic duo, anti-inflammation and antioxidants. We hear those terms all the time. But what makes them so important in these particular cases with COVID and Parkinson's?
Well, consider this. COVID-19 can trigger like a massive inflammatory response in the body. Sometimes it leads to this thing called a cytokine storm. It's basically like an overreaction of the immune system.
Oh, wow.
And it can be really dangerous.
So resveratrol could help, like, calm down that overreaction.
Exactly. And then in Parkinson's disease, chronic inflammation in the brain, it actually contributes to the death of neurons that produce dopamine. Yeah, it's a chemical messenger, plays a vital role in movement. And when those neurons die off, well, that's when you start seeing the tremors and other motor symptoms that are associated with Parkinson's.
So by calming down the inflammation, resveratrol might actually help protect the brain from further damage.
Exactly. It's not just about fighting the virus or the disease itself. It's about reducing that damage, slowing the progression.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And what about the antioxidant properties? How do those come into play?
Well, antioxidants, they protect cells from damage caused by free radicals, which are basically these unstable molecules.
Unstable how?
Well, they can wreak havoc on cells,
Oh, okay.
kind of like rust-damaging metal.
Okay.
Both COVID-19 and Parkinson's are associated with this thing called oxidative stress. It basically means there's an imbalance between those free radicals and the body's ability to neutralize them.
So it's like those free radicals are just running wild, causing damage, and resveratrol steps in with its antioxidant powers to kind of restore balance.
Precisely. Resveratrol can help neutralize those free radicals and protect the cells from damage.
Wow. So it's a two-pronged attack.
Yeah.
Taming inflammation and fighting free radicals.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive for a compound found in red wine.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how many other natural compounds are out there, that might have this kind of therapeutic potential just waiting to be unlocked.
Absolutely. This is why research into natural compounds is so vital. Nature holds this vast pharmacy of potential treatments, just waiting to be discovered.
So we've journeyed through the lungs, we've explored the brain, talked about some seriously cutting-edge drug delivery systems, and uncovered this whole world of anti-inflammation and antioxidants. What's the big takeaway here? What should our listeners really walk away with?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway here is that a single natural compound like resveratrol, it can have multiple targets and potentially benefit, a whole range of diseases, not just one.
That's really amazing. I mean, it really highlights how interconnected everything is in the body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the fact that something as simple as this compound found in grapes can have such wide-ranging effects, it's pretty mind-blowing.
Absolutely. And it also underscores how important it is to understand, the root causes of diseases, the underlying mechanisms. In this case, we've seen how targeting inflammation and the oxidative stress, those could be key to treating all sorts of conditions.
Yeah, it's like unlocking a secret code.
Yeah.
Figuring out the root causes and then finding the right keys to address them. But let's be realistic here. We've seen promising results in the lab, but how do we translate that into actual treatments for people? What are the next steps?
That's the million-dollar question. While these early findings are really exciting, we have to remember that we need a lot more research, especially research with humans, not just cells in a dish.
Right.
Clinical trials are going to be essential to figure out the right dosages, the long-term effects, and any potential interactions with other medications people might be taking.
Right. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, everyone go drink red wine.
Right.
We need a lot more testing to make sure that it's both safe and effective for everyone.
Yeah. I'd love to see some large-scale clinical trials, that specifically investigate resveratrol's impact on COVID-19 and Parkinson's. We need to understand how it works in different people and how it interacts with the treatments that are already out there.
Yeah, and those trials would need to be, really carefully designed. We have to account for all the complexity of these diseases. I mean, there are so many factors that can influence how a disease progresses.
Yeah.
What works for one person might not work for another, right?
Absolutely. Personalized medicine is becoming so important these days, and understanding how someone's genes and lifestyle factors influence, how effective resveratrol is. That's going to be really, really important.
Yeah. Sounds like we still have a long way to go, but the potential here is huge.
It is. It opens up this whole new avenue of research and possibilities. It makes you really appreciate the power of nature to, provide us with solutions to some of our biggest health problems.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that sometimes the answers are right there in front of us, just waiting to be discovered. Well, thanks for walking us through this research. It's been fascinating.
It's been my pleasure. Always happy to, dive into the world of science and see what we can uncover.
And to all of our listeners out there, keep that curiosity alive, and we'll catch you on our next deep dives into the world of science and knowledge.